Hey folks, thanks for coming over to Capitalism for Good. This is a part of a larger project where I am on a mission to interview 100 business leaders about the positive impact that they have on their internal and external communities. It is through these interviews that we will dig into how we can use the ways in which we make and spend our dollars in order to benefit the greater good. Folks, today we have Cal Crosby, who is the owner of the King's English Bookshop and is also Chief Executive Director of Brain Foods Books, both based outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. And he has just one of the coolest stories and brains, and just it is such a wealth of knowledge. He was so gracious in sharing his story and his journey of how he got to where he is, but also is one of those people who is free and open and welcoming with sharing kind of his knowledge and his advice and his philosophy of how other people can kind of replicate what he's been able to do and create this ecosystem of for-profit and non-profit world in order to push the boundaries of our communities, to be able to uplift the people around him, to be able to expand the world and the knowledge base and bring people together and be able to just make a community of people feel seen. You know, he is another one of these people, just like everyone that I think we've interacted with in the Capitalism for Good project, that I think we could have very easily talked for hours and hours. There's so much more to the story. There's also so many references and name drop. There's so many like pieces and details of the story. He's very particular about his speech and his language, which is it very much just as a person really appreciate and really, really loved. And so all of these things that he's talked about, these people that he mentioned and the places and stuff, look for tags to those things in the show notes, as well as to there'll be links for the King's English Bookstore and also Brain Food Books as well. Just as a reminder, I'll also put a link in the show notes to this as well for the Patreon for Capitalism for Good for the month of November 2025. 50% of all of the Patreon membership dollars are being donated to Feeding America, and then another charity of choice. And then moving forward after November 2025, we'll keep that rolling with a monthly donation to a charity of choice for anyone who is deciding to become a Patreon member there. We've got extra fun goodies. We've got early releases. We've got a whole exclusive series between the interviews there, and all sorts of like fun stuff that pops up in the middle. So if you're interested in being a part of that, check out the patreon.com/capitalism for good. Again, links to that in the show notes with all the things that Cal talked about as well. I am honestly just going to leave it there because he is so well spoken and captivating in his story that I think we should just let him take over. So enjoy. Things. Can you talk me through how it all got started? Like what came before the foundation, what came before King's English, and then like what brought you to where you are right now?
Okay. It's really a journey of a reader. My family we did not have books in the home. My family is not readers. My sister and I are readers. She is a master's prepared reading coach for Salt Lake School District. I'm a bookseller. um, but I got to spend summers with my grandmother, and it's actually the grandmother that lets me be able to claim my Cherokee status. And she didn't have a lot of means, and I mean this literally, and I mean literally in the proper use of the word literally,
Yeah.
could have a dime to her name. And if we were at a thrift shop and there was a book I wanted for that dime, she purchased it for me. I believe she saw that books were my way out of the systemic poverty that the family had. That clearly I marched to a different beat. I was not like the other boys. She let me find solitude and safety in books. So that's really where the journey started. And then as a reader, independent bookstores, before I knew what an independent bookshop was, were where I was drawn. So growing up in Salt Lake, Weller's, it's now Weller's Bookworks. Ken Sanders has been there for over 50 years. They were on my bus route that I could get downtown to. And then one day it was at Weller's, someone mentioned the King's English Bookshop. I was like, what is that? So as soon as I was able to get a car and drive up to where the King's English is, and where it has been for 48 years, walking in and opening that door was like going into Narnia. There's just a smell and an energy and an excitement. And, the more you step into it, the more you realize that everybody there just cares about books. And growing up as a person of color in Utah, especially the era that I did, I would be followed in a lot of shops. So with the bookshops. But I was still intimidated to really engage with what I now know to be booksellers. I just thought they were smarter than me and there was no, I had nothing in common with them. But at the King's English, these, from my perspective, affluent white ladies who were, I assume, well educated, not only directed me to find books, but they were interested in what I was reading and why I was reading it, what I liked about it. So suddenly, not only am I not being marginalized or followed, I'm being engaged like a whole person. So years go by. I end up in the San Francisco in the Bay Area, Marin County, Sonoma County, and then finally Sacramento. And I met a new friend. He and his wife had moved there at the same time as me, and my then husband had moved there. And she and I worked together. He was the assistant manager for Book Passage in Marin County. And my best friend from always lived in Marin County. She had moved a couple of years ahead of me. And she was always sending me signed copies. So like I had a signed copy of Anne Rice and like all these autographed copies. And I was like, what is this magical place? And I still hadn't put together that John was the assistant manager at Book Passage where Paula was sending me books from. So he says, we're hiring holiday help. And I know you have this full-time job and you've got this career track and whatever, but you're such a good reader. You should, could you squeeze in a part-time job during the holidays? So I went for the interview, and the woman interviewing me, Nancy, didn't tell me what her title was. And we sat on the patio. And for anyone who hasn't been to Book Passage's patio faces Mount Tam. It is beautiful. It is green. It is lush. It is gorgeous. It's just on the west side of the bay. And it's, I don't know, it felt like Italy. And so I'm sitting out there, we're having the interview, get sidetracked by just talking about books. I go home and I'm like, I don't know what that woman's job is, but I want that job. So I say to my then partner, and he says, well, shouldn't you actually get the part-time job before you try to take someone else's job? And I did not have the confidence. Like I was not that confident person because we had relocated. I went through many job interviews and, all that angsty stuff. But this is the first time I was like, I don't know what her job is, but that's the job I want. So flash forward really quickly. They had me eventually take over the cafe and wine bar. And I thought, oh, this is going to, like, I'm never going to get to manage the bookshop. Because by then I now know that Nancy was the store manager, but she wanted to be the buyer. So a year into it, working in the bookstore, managing the cafe wine bar, and Elaine, who founded the store and is still there, and is a great mentor, because I know we'll talk about that later, but really being young and being a bookseller and learning at the feet or the side of Elaine, however we want to do this, so valuable. So they came to me and they sat me down. I thought, well, I can't be getting fired. I've done a good job and the cafe's making money. Like, what's going on? And they offered me Nancy's job because Nancy could now become the buyer. Mm-hmm. And then, like, I was there for 5 years. It was great. I sort of maxed out everything I could learn at that point. Was recruited by Books Inc., who had just come out of a bankruptcy, and they were looking to build a author program series and to start doing more gift items. And again, studying at the feet. That's the phrase. Studying at the feet of Elaine Petrocelli. I came in with author programming experience, marketing experience, and um, extraordinary gift buying experience. So we were able to launch those things, and then again, I hit that wall, and there really isn't a lot of room for a lot of payroll adjustments. And Elaine came to me as I was contemplating, like, do I want to coast? Do I want to volunteer? Like, how do I keep, because I loved working at Books Inc. I was at Pacific Heights. This is the era when before the bubble popped.
Yeah.
So, like the neighborhood was Pacific Heights, and you'd get the lady that would come in and buy 5 hardcovers because she wanted her friends to read the same book as her. Like, it was a swinging, amazing, halcyon time.
Mm-hmm.
um, so Lane came to me, and the person who had replaced me had embezzled from them,
Oh.
and the business was very much at risk. And she came to tell me about it. And as we talked, we realized that I needed to go back.
Mm.
And so I went back, and we fixed things. We make a great, she and her husband Bill and I make a great team. We don't always agree,
Yeah.
which I love now as a bookshop owner, because I was a pain at times. But I learned a lot by being allowed to be that pain. And then, now I'm learning as an owner what their perspective is in a way that I couldn't as an employee. Got them fixed, and then went back to Books Inc. And this time I helped them open stores. So we opened Books Inc. in Alameda. Oh, and was that the time? That was also the time that I opened Books Inc. or Book Passage in the Ferry Building.
Okay.
Petrocelli. So it's the first time I got to open a store and help design a store and stock a store and physically fill a store.
Yeah.
And then train, I'm going to say this in a possessive sense, my people.
Yeah.
So not the people I inherited, not the people who saw me as a pushy kid, but my people. So it was a great experience. Went back to Books Inc., helped open Books Inc. in Alameda, Books Inc. at the Civic Center at Upper Plaza, and Books Inc. in Berkeley, and helped remodel the Marina store and the Palo Alto store. So really got to learn so much working alongside Michael Tucker, who just a genius, and the way that the efficiencies of having multiple locations that you didn't know as a single store operator.
Yeah.
Even with Book Passage, we saw the efficiencies that can create. And Books Inc. It still is. It is Barnes and Noble now, but we were referring to my past. So Books Inc. really was a cooperative sisterhood of independent bookshops working together under one umbrella.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was amazing. So then I went back to Book Passage for a final time. And again, it's that hitting that wall of, I've been unable to coast. And as I get older, I think I'm almost ready to do some coasting, but cool things happen and I want to be part of it.
Yeah.
So again, cool things happen, went back to Book Passage. And after that capped out, Dave Eggers had announced that McSweeney's, the publishing house he founded, was going to go from for-profit to nonprofit. They needed a sales and marketing director. And Elaine herself came to me and she said, Dave, because Bay Area authors, like, it is a small community. Like, I don't know of any other place where you can say, well, I just had coffee with Isabel Allende, or you just say Isabel and everybody knows it's Isabel Allende. He's looking for someone with this skill set.
Yeah.
And she knows, I know we've been trying to figure out something more long-term, but I think you're the person they're looking for. So you should at least go interview. So I interviewed, I got the job. So much, like, I didn't really understand what full nonprofit meant
Okay.
until that experience. Because to be honest, independent bookstores are not for profit. Like
Hmm.
the margin is so slim that the similarity is maybe a 4%.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, the accounting is just as tedious, maybe not as immaculate as you need to be with a 501c3, but
Yeah.
it is all very similar. And then learning about fundraising and all this stuff that you don't think about when you're not in a nonprofit, but loved the nonprofit part of it. Then the gentleman who was running the Northern California Independent Booksellers Association announced his retirement. And
Mm.
I had been a longtime board member. I was president of the board when Independent Bookstore Day started. And I resigned when I went to McSweeney's, even though I was still working part time at Book Passage.
Yeah.
Honestly, until I moved to Utah, I was still working part time at Book Passage.
Yeah.
I just wasn't on the payroll.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, I'm still working for Book Passage. We still talk, and Bill's like, "No, which way do the lines run in the plumbing?" So, um, again, not on the payroll, but still very much a part of them.
Yeah.
Um, so he announced his retirement, and because I loved the trade organization, and it really killed me to have to resign, but I just didn't feel it was good optics
Yeah.
to have a full time job in publishing and lead independent booksellers.
Yeah.
And so stepping out was one of the hardest choices I had to make. And so Hut's retiring, I apply, and I have never shared this story publicly. This is a good story.
Okay.
Once I started thinking about it, I wanted the job so bad that, like the first time you do an oral book report in school and you're shaking and you're nervous and you can't remember the title of the book. It was the only thing to do in my life that was like that. And it's
Yeah.
I know people that I help. Some of them I help them find other jobs. Some of them I help them re-merchandise their stores, because these people have known me for all the ways I've touched the business, and I'm scared to death because I want
Mm.
this job so bad.
Hmm.
Fortunately, they knew me beyond the interview and hired me. So then I did that. Um, Southern California was unique in that it's the only region that had two regional offices for booksellers, Southern California and Northern California. The others had multiple states. I think we talked before about efficiencies. It
Yeah.
didn't feel efficient.
Yeah.
And the weight of one California, I saw as being more powerful than one really thriving giant, which was Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
And our little sister was having some troubles, let's say.
Yeah. Uh-huh. As they
So,
do. Uh-huh.
yeah, they do. So we were able to merge and bring California together. And so now it's the California um, Independent Booksellers Alliance, CALIBA. And happy doing that. Then the pandemic happened, and that was insane.
Hmm.
But I got an opportunity to consult at Underground Books in Sacramento. And Underground Books, for anyone who doesn't know them, is part of the nonprofit St. Hope. St. Hope started out as an after school program and is now charter schools focused on the Black youth community there in Sacramento that has taken an area, a neighborhood that was known for drug dealing, was known for
Mm.
prostitution, was known for murder, with no library, with no after school programs. By starting those after school programs, Kevin Johnson then built it to St. Hope, where they had like a 98% college success rate from the school. Like it's a phenomenal. And the
Yeah.
kids work with us at Underground. And, on those days you lose hope, you should go to Underground and let one of we call them interns there, let one of those interns help you find a book. And you'll go, you know what? We're going to be okay. At some point,
Yeah.
we're going to be good.
Yeah.
And I got to work with Mother Rose, who happened to be Kevin Johnson's mother. And I was to bring them more into the book selling community because they'd been isolated. And also bring in more gift items, the things that I have been known to do. And well, I was supposed to be the expert, learning to sell books in a community that I
Mm.
had not been a part of, and learning, like, again, I identify as a person of color. I am Cherokee, um, but I can code switch.
Yeah.
And then being in a community that they can't code switch, and what that means. The more I worked with the kids, the more I worked with Mother Rose, the more I got to know the community. It made me a better bookseller than all of my years. And we'll just refer to the Pacific Heights ladies who bought 5 hardcovers, who I love and adore. But it changed my DNA, and I was like, I crave being back in a bookshop. Like,
Yeah.
how can I sustain this? Because the consulting gig was, they were on their feet. They're doing a fabulous job. I'm so proud of the work we did and the work that they do. But it was coming to an end. So I'm contemplating that. We're starting to come out of the pandemic. I lived on Zoom. I was so afraid the organization was going to fail while I was the ED that I became so obsessive
Mm.
that looking back, I don't know how I wasn't committed
Yeah. I relate.
because I was so worried that the organization was going to fail. And I loved it so much, I just could not have it fail on my watch.
Yeah.
So things kind of settle, wrapping up at Underground. And Betsy Burton, who who owned the King's English Bookshop and had become a friend, in 2012, I also got to lead a tour of the King's English for booksellers at a bookselling conference in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And so I geeked out because I got to go behind the scenes. I got to go in the back room, and I flew in a couple weeks earlier. We talked about wall color and like all those kind of things, so they were ready for when we led the tour to really show off and shine. So we'd become longtime friends. She calls me and she said, I know I'm not in your region, but as my friend, I need advice. I'm ready to retire and I need to sell my shares. So, because I'd had that conversation, I dare say hundreds of times with other booksellers,
Yeah.
I'd lost a little patience with it.
Mm.
So I kind of had some core questions where I'm like, okay, is this worth continuing or not? And
Yeah.
she was ready to retire. Like, I could completely discern that she was ready. So I said, okay, well, let me think on this and I'll call you back. And I hung up because evidently I still have a landline.
It's history now.
So I hung up and turned to my husband, Keith, and I said, if I keep talking to her, I can only see this playing out one way. And can we talk about what it would be for you to move to Salt Lake with me and make an offer on the store? And we talked for a few minutes, and he's like, that's always been your dream. You put so much effort into trying to be a partner with the other bookshops you worked in, and let's do it. So the next call basically was, Betsy, here's what I can afford. She worked out terms that, a life in nonprofit, which includes the independent bookstores, not a lot of nest eggs. And we can refer back to my origins of below poverty level. So there's no inheritance anywhere.
Right.
So through her grace and generosity, I was able to move back. For me, move back. Keith was able to move, and we took on the store 4 years ago, and it it feels like it's now where stores age and people change and they get known for something. So now when I look at it from 4 years down the road from where we were, and again, great store, always a great store. But who we are now for the way people shop now, the way that people want a bookshop now, and how we recognize we're a business as much as we
Mhm.
are a community resource and a community center. But all these things have to work together or we won't be there.
Yeah.
And having a community that sees that brings it all together. And it honestly, it's been amazing. We had every touring Indigenous author this last fall. So, I think Birchbark Books also probably had those same authors. Some of them mentioned they'd been at Louise Erdrich's store, but for the most colonialist named bookshop in America to now be a destination for Native authors. Like that speaks to how we've changed who we are and what we do. And
Yeah.
we will still take all the colonialist and settler authors. We're not excluding them, but to be that place, to be known for the celebrating Indigenous authors.
That's
Did I answer
so
the
exciting. Yes, when did Brain Food Books come
Okay,
to, where does
so
that work into this story?
one of my frustrations before going into the pandemic was Ann Seaton, who has now joined us at Brain Food as well, and she was my co-partner in the trade association. We loved the 501c6 and what that meant because it's still a nonprofit,
Yeah.
but we also wanted to do more for kids because she was a longtime children's bookseller before she moved into administration and stuff. And this commitment to kids literature and how it does change a life. So we started investigating how we could start a 501c3, but because of working with the trade association, we
Mm.
would have had to find an equitable way to work with
Yeah.
or show the opportunity to work with all of our members, or it's a conflict of interest. And I love my brilliant California booksellers, but working with them in one space was enough.
Right. Right.
Doubling down, not going to happen. I do not have that capacity. So that was always in my mind. Pandemic skewed it for a little while because of the craziness.
Yeah.
So then, as Keith and I started making plans to move to Salt Lake, I was like, oh, well, I bet economy to scale. Like we could start a nonprofit and put books into kids' hands. So chance meeting, first Christmas Eve, and this is again like one of those magical stories where people will think I'm embellishing, and I will tell you the details might be hazy. I am not embellishing the story. A longtime reader and supporter of the bookshop came in on Christmas Eve, and she had a stack of books, and we take the phone number for the frequent readers, and I asked her phone number, and she said, if that one comes up with a discount, then I have another phone number for you. So the first one was her name, Barbine. Second one was Brain Food Books. And I said, oh, what is Brain Food Books? And she said, oh, it's a nonprofit that I started so that I could put books into community pediatric clinics so that when the kids get their checkup, they can pick a book and take it home. I was like, oh, that's amazing. She was, so what are your plans? Beyond the bookshop, what are your plans now that you're back in Salt Lake? And I said, well, Brain Food Books. This is what I want to do. So we go out front because she's like, okay, we got to talk. So then we go out front. It starts to snow, and we're standing by the bench, and we're crying because like the connection of knowing how important a book can be for a child
Yeah.
is something like is in the core of our beings. We're crying. It turns out she was in the process of shutting Brain Food down because she had retired, and she was able to turn Brain Food over to me. And my 3 to 4 year plan of being able to build a nonprofit happened really fast.
Yeah.
And with the leverage, and this is where the business and the nonprofit come together beautifully because of my experience, because of my connections, because of the bookshop's weight, because of the bookshop's history. We can leverage things to get books for less than other nonprofits doing similar, which has allowed us to go from first just doing author events in schools and to doing full on like I feel like I'm plugging them and I'm not. But a scholastic book fair at the schools, but we call it a golden ticket because every kid gets a golden ticket and then they get to pick the book of their choice. But we set it up just as we would if we were in a private school or whatever. It's a lot of the same titles, a little more reflection of the community though than you would see in a lot of the private schools. We just did an event in Ogden, which is north of Salt Lake, and we gave out 600 books, many of them in Spanish and or dual language, to a population that a lot of them didn't have any books on their own.
Yeah.
And then we found out that there's a shelter nearby that a lot of the kids funnel through. So then we were able to drop off some more books for the kids so that when they arrive in the shelter, there's a new book waiting for them. Um, but yeah, like just to do that. And so we took off running. We've now, as of October, started including grown-up books in our community events. And we've done three so far. And I thought my heart was full with the work we do with the kids. When I have a non-native English speaking dad be seen when I show him where the books are and we talk about what he's looking for and I get to hand sell
Yeah.
air quotes. I get to put a book in his hand, maybe two. Um, it's powerful,
Yeah.
you know. The moms and everything, like it's amazing. But the dads being seen is something I wasn't expecting. So
Has this always been a part of the way your brain works to be able to connect all of these things together into one ecosystem? Like you've got Brain Food Books that is focused on kids, but you've got this larger mission of community connection, families, education, world expansion. You're connecting it to what you're doing, leveraging your for profit business. Like you've got all of these things together. Like, are you kind of a world builder by nature, or is that something you kind of learned along the way, or is it just magic?
that is a really good question. I'm going to overshare a couple things. I got a late in life diagnosis of ADHD, which explains where sometimes I thought it was stupid because I couldn't comprehend things.
Yeah.
But now I know it's just, the exchange for that is that I read fast, which as a bookseller, tell me there's a better
Great.
superpower.
Yeah.
And I retain. Not only do I read fast, I retain. But in that, I see the end.
Yeah.
And so the process of getting from A to Z is excruciatingly long for me because I can see it. Like, let's just get there. The other thing is sometimes someone once said, and they used it not as a compliment, they called me an opportunist. And I was taken aback
Yeah.
and I reflected on it because that's how we learn and we improve. And they're right. I am an opportunist. I'm an opportunist to my core. But I'm looking for opportunity for everyone. I'm not an opportunist in that I take advantage of someone or I want to step on someone or I want to take their piece of candy or I just want to be handed what they're clearly have been given. I'm an opportunist in how can the most have the best? How can the most receive the most good? And that makes me a community builder. Like I want to be around like-minded people. I don't understand, I'm not going to go political here, but the news feed does not make sense in my brain. Even though being an elder now, that's what my native kids they're like. Oh, you're an elder. No, but I'm an elder. As an elder, I will own it. It still shocks me that
Yeah.
we just can't have the goodness that we get. There's an epiphany. The goodness we get when we were kids reading a book, whether it was Ramona the Past, whether it was Nancy Drew Hardy Boys, that joyful, I'm going to say rest, that joyful escape, that joyful break from everything. And, no matter being food or housing insecure or being rich, like we intersect when we have access to books. And so I don't understand how that doesn't bear more weight for us as we grow up.
Yeah. And it takes people like you. I'm going to make a connection here to the I should also tell you I late in life ADD diagnosis
Yeah.
here, and I wrote down superpower when you said it because that's what I call it all the time. Like once I learned how to just use it as my superpower, I was like, oh, I can conquer the world here. Um, but the connection that I make here is the interview that just came out for Capitalism for Good is Ben Higgins. He was a contestant on, I don't remember which came first because I'm not a big TV watcher. I'm a book reader. He was a contestant on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, and his whole thing was like he he felt really uncomfortable with being in that position, but he saw an opportunity there, and his whole like kind of inspiration for where he landed with his company was like how do I take this opportunity that's been kind of handed to me and do something good with it. And his whole mission is like caring about the outsider and being able to like help people feel connected. And that sounds really similar to your philosophy and like being an opportunist in the best sense of the world, like seeing an opportunity and finding a way to make something good out of it. That's not just personal. That's not just, okay, how can I get a good, stable job? How can I get rich fast? How can I get a following? How can I whatever? It's how can I do something that's like going to be meaningful and that's going to make me feel good, but it's also going to make everyone else feel good. And that's going to improve the lives of all these other people, just like my life was
Yeah.
improved. Like he's got a lot of those same parallels of people who just like plucked him out of the world and was like, okay, we think that you'd be good here. We think that you could be helpful here. And he just was like, okay, yes, but I'm going to do something a little different with it than just the norm. And I think it's people like both of you that push the boundaries of actually improving our community. You kind of shied away from talking about like the newsfeed and the headlines and stuff. And I'm gonna not and say there are people that own big giant companies who are taking their position and using that for kind of personal gain and personal growth. And I think folks like you who can take an opportunity of being a business owner and an executive director of a nonprofit and being able to find ways to connect those things together are the people who push the boundaries of our community and push the boundaries of like our people for good. And like that is one of the coolest things in the whole world. And it makes me think of the story you were telling about the women in the bookstore when you were a kid that were like, "Hey, I see you. What are you interested in? Let me find the books that you'll like. And also, what about these other things that you probably haven't even thought of that are gonna like open your world even bigger?" And
I wish I remembered the woman who gave me Tales of the City because she saw me in a way that I don't know that I was ready to be seen.
yeah. Do you think about her when you're like when you're interacting with people and you're handing new
Actually,
books and stuff
every
to
time I
people?
walk into paperback fiction, I think of her. So I just think, that's how I ended up going to San Francisco. Was it sounded like a utopia for at that time weirdo outcast like myself, and it was where I needed to be at that time.
For people who are like listening to this or who are interested in like, okay, well, I'm going to take what I'm doing in my position as a book buyer or my position as a store owner or whatever it was. I'm going to do something a little bit more. Like, what's your advice for them to kind of think outside of the box to be able to help their community and give back? And I'm going to add another layer to this. And we kind of touched on this before we started recording, but like in today's world that's changed so much, the way in which we buy things, the way we interact with our communities, specifically books, is different than it was before. Like, how would you recommend that people who are so like pressed and feel like it's really difficult and like, man, I'm just surviving right now. And I would love to help other people, but it doesn't seem realistic. Like, what's your advice for people like that?
Hey, take a deep breath.
I feel like you're
and
speaking straight to me for that.
and look at what it is you can give or that you want to give or the thing that you want to fix, cure, heal, and look for the efficiencies of where
Mhm.
the for profit can line up and think outside of the box. So we traditionally do a book drive at the bookshop separate from brain food for the holidays. This year, because of the food insecurity that has been quadrupled or more so magnified. We'll use the word magnified. We're going to continue collecting canned goods for the food bank, but for every 10 canned goods, the bookshop and Brain Food will donate a book to House of Hope. And the beautiful thing about House of Hope is it is a rehab shelter where women get to keep their kids.
Mm.
And so by other people supporting the food insecurities, we're able to, they're going to have a really nice Christmas at House of Hope. And the work that they're doing, to me, it's just so rare and special that the, the humanity of a
Yeah.
mom being able to be with her kids. But also, there's enough. There's enough. And so when you talk about the billionaires that are boot dealing their employees and everything, there really is enough. And how much can you spend in one lifetime? And yes, I would love, no, I wouldn't love a big house, but I would love to, I would love something beyond my mobile home. um, but that's enough. And this is enough. Like,
Yeah.
I have art space. I've never had art space. Like, that's a luxury. So, but
Yeah.
there's enough. You have a way to share your enough.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's powerful. I also were thinking you just brought up efficiency again, and that kind of leads into something else that I'm super interested in and think is key to being able to keep this ecosystem that you have alive, which is the efficiency ties into stability. And if you're able to find ways to make your life a little bit easier and to keep things running, they can keep running in the long term. Obviously, they have to be able to be adaptable and kind of change as things evolve. That's also important. But as much as people like you and me who want to do four different things at one time because it all seems really interesting. And I heard you say that you want to coast at some point, and I don't know if I believe you because of all the things you have going on. But like, I think efficiency is a key piece in all of that. Do you see any other key pieces in creating that stability internally in the nonprofit world, in the for profit world, in the community world, wherever that is? Like, what are those things that kind of keep the worlds working as well as we can keep them working in the chaos that is today?
so the King's English Bookshop and Brain Food Books has a shared services agreement.
Mm.
So that means that overhead is disrupted in a beautiful way for both organizations. So in that, we are able to feed some profitability back into Brain Food, and Brain Food, again, that dollar goes so much further with all the leveraging. But it also, we share staff. I'm employed by both organizations. So if I if you look at one, I'm the most underpaid.
Right.
One of the most underpaid. But together, it's enough.
Yeah.
It affords me the space where I have an art studio. I have a home office space. Like it's enough.
Yeah.
Were it not on wheels, that would be better, but but it's
Goals.
enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like that whole efficiency of maybe that lack of need for fancy, because just that disruption alone with the lead managers, whatever my titles are, wage being split is a
Yeah.
huge disruption. And it goes on further with we're sharing programming, we're sharing marketing, what all those things we share. We're doing it for pennies compared to what other people are doing it on the nonprofit side.
Yeah.
And everything helps when you have a fixed margin in the book selling world. So any 2% you can find anywhere helps us still be that much more profitable or
Yeah.
profitable.
Where the shared services agreement, I feel like that is a specific set of knowledge that often folks within the nonprofit world might be familiar with, but also for those who are maybe like newer to that world might not be familiar with those types of solutions like that, at least from my perspective, was kind of like a niche little call it that you had there. Is that something that you picked up on in your nonprofit days, or did you learn it somewhere else, or did you have like an advisor or someone that was like, hey, I
I
think this is our solution?
had an advisor, and I've taken a lot of education on this. I've been very
Mm,
blessed to be well
yeah.
supported with, we'll call it information gathering and
Yeah.
skill sets. I just finished a communications fellowship through the Emerson Foundation, their Dial program, and you want to talk about life changing. Like what we don't know and what has just been natural instinct in the bookshop world is so young compared to the nonprofit sector.
Mm,
Uh, we've been able to be insular in a way that we can shop talk or have that internal language
yeah.
because that's who our readers are. Our readers are us, just on the other side of the counter. Like there's that. You're not asking strangers for something.
Yeah.
Strangers are seeking you out for your advice. So it's a whole different spin on learning to ask. Learning to ask coming from a financially insecure background.
Yeah.
Um, Learning to ask is huge. And, thanks to this coaching and this training, I will ask. I will lead with it because I'm not out anything if they
Yeah.
say no.
Yeah.
And learning that it's not about me, or it doesn't mean that they can smell the former poor. It's just that they're not buying into the mission. It
Yeah.
doesn't resonate with them. But I can do a shared services in theory with anyone. And I think any business can do that. If you partner, let's say a wine bar wants to partner with a bookshop, you can look at what it's going to cost to host that event and what the ticket price is, and just split the cost, as opposed to necessarily trying to make money at the front of it. Like,
Mhm.
what do you each need? Like, what is enough? And what is enough? Let's come together, and then the extra glass of wine and the extra books sold is where the bonus comes in for each organization.
Yeah. And then the knowledge share and the expertise share is like so key there as well.
Co-marketing, co-marketing, like
Yeah.
getting on, whether they have more or less followers than you, getting on their feed, tagging each other, that mutual shared service thing. There's
Mhm.
so many ways to do it, not even just with a nonprofit, but also with a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Planned Parenthood wants to do, I don't know, a lecture at your bookshop. Well, talk about what that costs, and certainly I would not want to make a profit off Planned Parenthood. But let's just say that there's an equity in there somewhere that we can arrive at.
Mhm. Yeah. In still kind of thinking about like world building, internal business building, again, I've heard you say that you've got your eye on looking to coast at some point, and like if you truly have that in mind of like at some point you might kind of pull back, part of that stability of keeping the legacy of what you've built going is the folks in that crew, your employees, your teams, your people that you called them earlier, that are gonna hopefully kind of keep that going. What's kind of your philosophy or your thought process on keeping them around, on fostering those relationships and supporting those people, for kind of the future?
Okay, well, I'm going to go really spiritual with you.
Okay.
Uh, Having opened up stores from scratch and having taken over many stores, and my it was not a positive, but I was called the fixer at Books Inc. often, and if I showed up, the manager knew they were going away, and then I would stay with the staff and work them through it while we waited to replace them, and I would manage the shop. Um, the DNA you put into your business, the DNA you put into your nonprofit, and I am lucky to inherit good DNA, stays with the organization. So when you do this, you need to keep that in mind. That first set of people you hire, the habits and the energy and the positives and negatives, somehow seep into the building, seep into the space. And if you don't stay conscious while you build, it will always revert back to that. So whenever you do this or whenever you have to fix something, you have to keep that in mind. You need people who are strong enough and see the vision and want to invest in the longevity.
Mm.
And, it's really the gig economy has shifted the brains as well as the pandemic. Right now, I feel very lucky that there are some key people who want to make one, other, or both the combo
Oh,
a career path. And I do everything I can to invest in them for that.
yeah,
Um, Healthcare is a huge investment for us.
yeah,
It's important because I want them to be healthy and I want them also to help when I'm out. I want them to help the business sustain, but I also want them to know that they need to take care of their people as best they can.
yeah,
So it's a constant vigilance when you're looking at this, and with the idea of coasting, I honestly don't know what that looks like. The more I've thought
same.
about it. And I'm okay with that. You
Yeah,
know, I'm okay being that super old guy with my shaking hand, putting a book in a kid's hand at a Title One elementary school or whatever, at a
yeah,
community event. But I want both things to sustain. And with the bookshop, I just feel like I am the current shepherd.
yeah,
I guess that's true with the nonprofit as well. Um, there's so many pages of hope left to offer the world that I would like to see that continue. So again, being conscious and surrounding myself with people who want something similar. Maybe they don't see Z the way I see Z, but they'll get there, working the alphabet out.
yeah. I'm curious, how do you go about making all of these decisions, whether it is what you're doing in the future or the people around you, or okay, now it's time to pull the trigger on taking over a nonprofit or buying a bookstore or whatever that is. You've got so many things within even just the pieces of the story that you've told me so far that I'm going to use the word magic again, like that just seem like they are uh, out out of a book, out of a story, out of a movie, and like, how are you leaning into those things and knowing, okay, this is the time I should say yes, or like, maybe no.
Learning to say no was hard.
Mm,
So much of my experience was I didn't know how to say no.
yeah,
I am at most days I'm at capacity, and because of the joy that both the bookshop and the brain food bring to me, I want to protect that, and I don't mind working the hours that I need to work because it's really not work. Sometimes there are other things I'd rather do than sit at the screen, but you have to sit at the screen to do the other work.
yeah.
I forgot the question.
I put it into like
Oh,
4 chapters. How do you make decisions?
a lot of it's trusting the universe.
Yeah.
The,
Mm,
the Barbara Bean story is an exact, and Betsy calling me when she called me. If she'd called me at another time, I couldn't imagine doing it.
yeah.
And I never had any intention of coming back to Utah. So like it just would never have occurred to me. But sometimes the universe calls and you have to pick up.
Yeah.
You're just going to say no to the universe. And I trust in the universe.
I love that. Okay, this brings us to my last question that I ask everyone, which is who's another business and or leader that you see out there in the world that's making a positive impact? And it could be anyone, it could be someone that you work with now, it could be an old boss or mentor, a coach, someone that you are a patron of, absolutely anyone that you think deserves a shout out.
I'm going to go with Elaine Petrocelli since she really turned me into a business person, not just a bookseller, but a business person.
Yeah.
Her insight, her strength, her forthrightness, her our strength, and also knowing what was what it was the bookshop could do versus what it couldn't do. So,
Mm.
yes, we could host 800 people for this author, but we're not going to get 800 for this one. So if that's the expectation, we need to have that conversation with the publisher. Like, she was really good about knowing what she can do and what made sense for the business. And I think a lot of us, I still have a lot of it. Book selling is romantic, and it's also an expectation. The space is an expectation, because it's a lot of introverts who've gone into an industry to sell books and not talk to people, and a lot of English majors, so not a lot of
Mm.
math. So to learn from someone who knows math,
Yeah.
it's been good, and I would not be here without her. I would not be here without Betsy and that crew. I would not be here without Michael and Margie Tucker. Like, all of these people in the independent bookstore world powerfully influenced me as a business person, and because of them, I feel we're adapting to the way people buy now in a way that we couldn't without these experiences.
Yeah. I love that so much. And Cal, I have loved talking to you. This has been so great. Thank you so much for being so willing to do this and for sharing so much of your personal story, but also advice for other people. I think it it's hopefully just another one of those examples of you continuing to like push the boundary of communities and allowing other people to learn from the things that you've done and kind of follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, well, we were all stronger together. So when we find that place where we meet and see each other's humanity,
Yeah.
all things are possible.